All right, let's talk about the Detroit Lions, fresh off a really thrilling primetime victory over the 49ers, now focusing on a division title opportunity, big time Vikings matchup, of course, this weekend. But lost in all the noise, it's really an incredible job by the Detroit Lions. No one is really talking about it. It's almost unprecedented what the Lions have done here. We've got a really interesting story for you guys. But first, I'm Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, it's no secret over the course of a long NFL season, the teams that are the healthiest are often the best. And if you're beat up, you're just not going to be good. That's just the reality of it. Sometimes it doesn't matter how good of a preseason you have, how good of a draft, how good of a talented roster you have. If you're beat up and you have injuries, you're just not going to be a good football team. That's just the reality of the world. In fact, the guys at overthecap.com, and this is where we'll start, came up with a really interesting graph talking about all the different teams that have the most in terms of dollars per year, APY, average per year of their contract allocated on reserve list due to injury, pup list, things like that. Let's throw up the chart here so that way people can see it, then you can understand what I'm talking about. And these are the top teams in the National Football League in terms of most dollars, again, average per year on the contract. That's basically missed time due to injury, injured reserve, pup list, things like that. And you can go down the list here. Top, you have Dallas, which has an incredible amount of injuries, of course. San Francisco's had a lot. Jacksonville, Cleveland, Detroit on the list. The Giants, the Raiders, the Carolina Panthers, the Arizona Cardinals, the Dolphins, the Titans, and then wrapping it up with the New Orleans Saints. And you can see the gambit runs from about a buck 54 for Dallas. That's crazy. Down to about 53 million for the Saints. These are the teams that have the most injuries in terms of significant players, in terms of cap dollars put on reserve lists, right? This is a very interesting list. And most of the teams on this list really have not been good this season, except for one. Let's go ahead and shift over to our other graph here. This is a dot plot I put together highlighting the wins and all those teams in terms of where they are ranking in terms of their APY. So you can see on this graph right here, it looks kind of confusing, but you basically see a lot of dots clustered below 9 wins. There's a few teams. You've got Dallas, you've got Miami, you got San Francisco there at that 7, 8, 9 win or 7, 6, 7, 8 win range right there. Most of the other teams are huddled right there around 5, 4, 3 wins, right? That's just the reality. Like I said, if you have a lot of injuries, usually you're not going to be very good. The Lions are the exception. They are the anomaly. You can see that dot far above everything else with 14 wins. When you look at this graph, there's one key thing that jumps out. When you're dealing with a lot of injuries, if you're in the bottom third of injuries in the NFL, you are just capped at 8 wins at this point. Maybe you get to 9, but there's just no way you're going to get to double-digit wins. It just doesn't happen. It doesn't matter if you're in the AFC. It doesn't matter if you're in the NFC. It doesn't matter if you're a team that's been really good like the 49ers or a team that hasn't been good like the Carolina Panthers. If you have a lot of injuries, you are not going to be good. The Lions, however, have proven themselves to be the exception. And this is the incredible job done by Dan Campbell, Aaron Glenn, Johnson, all the guys stepping up. This is what people aren't focusing on. It hasn't been pretty on defense, obviously, over the past month or so. The offense has certainly stepped up its game big time. But this is what really jumps out at me. And this is why I think the Lions, despite their injuries, can still make a serious run at a title, is that they have the culture, they have the leadership, they have the scheme, they have the buy-in from the players to break norms, to do things that haven't been done before. And this graph right here is just an example of how far the Lions are separated from the rest of the competition. All their peers in the injury realm, they're bound from 4 to 8 wins. The Lions, 14. They're in a different game. They're playing a different game. They have a chance to win the big game at the end of the season. Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on all of this. But first, Lions fans, in the comment section below, all this interesting data being said, it is now time to focus on the Vikings game real quick. Give us your prediction. Final score, Minnesota, Detroit for the number 1 seed for the division title. Going to be a great game. Can't wait to watch it. Give us your prediction in the comment section below. But Miles, I will throw it over to you now. What are your thoughts on all things Detroit?
Yeah, Nick, and I think this list here and all of this data you pulled together, it really shows just how special the Lions have been. Because if you break it down even further and just look at the Lions in retrospect to everybody else around them, they're fifth on the list as far as that dollar, the average per year on the reserve list. They're number 5, so it's not like they're 10th and they're like just barely on the list and like okay they get away with it here. They got lucky. No, they're pretty high up there. And the other thing to remember is this isn't a Lions team that just got injured a bunch of guys last week. They've been injured all season long from the very get-go to the Aiden Hutchinson injury all throughout the season. the Lions have been decimated by injuries from the get. So this is a Lions team who's been battling through multiple injuries, doing a lot of really good work with it. I think this is extremely impressive, especially with what they've been able to accomplish with it. And you bring up the point is there's a kind of a cap on here with how injured you are. You look at teams like the San Francisco 49ers, they're at 6 wins. You look at the Carolina Panthers, they're at 4 wins. Being able to compare those two teams, we know the Carolina Panthers innately are much worse talent-wise than the San Francisco 49ers, but record-wise, they're pretty similar. They're not too far off. The 2 wins there, that's not a huge jump in this day and age of the NFL. So I think it's just really impressive seeing that you see a team like the 49ers who has an immense amount of talent, and they have been hobbled down to the level of a team like the Carolina Panthers with their injuries. But you see the Detroit Lions, they've excelled, they've jumped past that bar. They look so good with all of this going into it. And I think even more so, the Lions, they've excelled because most of their injuries have been on the defensive side of the ball, at least the vast majority of the really impactful ones. But their defense per PFF still ranks 7th in the NFL. So it's not just that the Lions are doing good. They're doing really good. They're top 10 in all aspects of the game. So to me, this is really special by the Lions. This just shows this culture, this everything that Dan Campbell's bred into this team. This is the proof is in the pudding moment. This is the real deal. It isn't just a bunch of hoopla. So I'm excited for Lions fans. I really like what we're seeing here. And if the Lions can go very far or even take it all the way and win a Super Bowl this year, I think this would be absolutely fantastic to look back through all of this and just go through exactly how good the Lions have been with everything that they've had to battle through.
And you've hit on something really important just to wrap this whole thing up here. If you look at what injuries do, is they bring good and okay teams down to the bad. You brought up the 49ers, right? This was a team that was in the Super Bowl last year, probably should have won the Super Bowl. They have a rash of injuries. They're now at 6 wins. They're down to the Carolina Panthers level, right? The Dallas Cowboys won 12 games 3 straight years. They're dealt with injuries. They're brought down to that same level. Miami Dolphins, back-to-back playoff appearances, won 11 games last year. They have the injuries. They're down to that same level. Every single team experiences this. You're a good, talented team. You have injuries. You're brought down to the bad level. It's just the way of the world in the NFL, except for the Lions. They are the exception. I don't know how they do it. There's something just really special about Campbell, Johnson, Glenn, the entire organization, Holmes, top to bottom. They've done an incredible job. And I don't know how this will literally translate to postseason wins. I don't know how it's all going to shake out. But when I look at data like this, it is really hard to bet against the Lions because this is proof. This is proof right here, folks, that there really is something special going on to Detroit. This is the quantifiable data. And I tell you what, the rest of the NFC better watch out.